Getting a winning decision in a UDRP case is obviously what every trademark owner wants when it files a complaint, but the decision itself is not the end of the process. Instead, an order to transfer a domain name simply kicks off what should be the last stage of the dispute. But still, every trademark owner needs to be aware of at least 3 important issues to ensure that the domain name is actually transferred. Now, most decisions under the UDRP, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, are favorable to trademark owners. In the last issue of GigaLaw's Domain Dispute Digest, for example, I reported that 94.6% of all UDRP decisions resulted in orders to transfer the disputed domain names to the trademark owners who filed the complaints, with only 4.1% of cases denied, letting the current registrants keep the domain names. And by the way, only a tiny percentage of cases, about 1.3%, result in cancellation of the disputed domain names, which is really an odd remedy that I don't think I have ever recommended for any of my clients. But even though trademark owners are almost always victorious, it doesn't mean that they can sit back and do nothing and wait for the disputed domain names in their cases to suddenly land in their portfolios. So the first thing that every trademark owner needs to understand is that the UDRP has a waiting period of 10 business days after the service provider has notified the parties of the decision. And this waiting period gives a losing domain name registrant an opportunity to go to court to block implementation of the UDRP decision. In other words, to prevent the domain name from being transferred. Specifically, paragraph 4K of the UDRP says that if the registrar receives official documentation that the domain name registrant has commenced a lawsuit against the complainant in a jurisdiction to which the complainant has submitted under paragraph 3B12 of the Rules of Procedure, then the registrar will not implement the administrative panel's decision. Perhaps in another video, I'll dive deeper into what is a relevant jurisdiction and what has to occur for this block to be lifted. But the important takeaway here is that the domain name will not be transferred to the trademark owner until at least 10 business days after the decision has been notified, and it won't be transferred even then if the registrant has filed suit in an appropriate jurisdiction to stop the transfer. Now, I'll say that this is an extremely rare occurrence. In fact, it's only happened to me twice, and I've won thousands of domain names for my clients over more than 2 decades. And in both of those cases, by the way, I ultimately obtained the domain names for my clients even after the lawsuits had been filed. So WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, which publishes a list of UDRP-related court cases, lists only 48 such cases between 2000 and 2021, although the list is certainly not complete because I know that my 2 cases are not even on the list, and it's impossible for anyone to track all domain name litigation worldwide following from UDRP decisions. But the point is clear. Lawsuits to block trademark owners from obtaining domain names they've won in UDRP cases are rare, though it's always a possibility. And the one certain thing is that no transfer will occur until the 10 business day waiting period has expired. So the second thing that every trademark owner needs to understand about transfers is that the UDRP does not specifically say anything about how the transfer is to occur, only that the registrar for a domain name that has been ordered transferred must implement the decision. ICANN's Registrar Accreditation Agreement, or RAA, isn't of much help either, because it simply requires registrars to comply with the UDRP. Now, as a result, the common practice in my experience is that most registrars will ask a trademark owner to identify an account at the same registrar into which the domain name can be transferred after the waiting period has expired. And that's usually a simple and efficient process, but it often means that the domain name will not immediately be transferred to the trademark owner's own registrar, which means that a second transfer may be required. The third thing that every trademark owner needs to understand about transfers is that not every registrar is cooperative. As I just said, the RAA requires registrars to implement UDRP decisions, but that doesn't mean every registrar is familiar with the UDRP process. that every registrar speaks the same language as the trademark owner, or that every registrar is eager to take action against its own customers. As a result, while most of the large, well-known registrars handle UDRP transfers regularly without incident, some registrars can be incredibly difficult to work with. Now, in my experience, I found it best to give an uncooperative registrar the benefit of the doubt, at least initially, given that inexperience, language differences, and even issues such as emails blocked by spam filters can sometimes explain a registrar's failure to implement a UDRP decision promptly. But unfortunately, sometimes registrars need to be pressured to fulfill their contractual obligations under the RAA, and in those cases, getting the UDRP service provider or ICANN involved can sometimes be helpful. Although WIPO, for example, says that its role normally ends upon notification of a panel decision to the parties and registrar, it will often strongly remind a registrar of its obligations to transfer a domain name. And ICANN provides a contractual compliance complaint form, which a winning trademark owner can file to get assistance with implementation of a UDRP decision, although ICANN is not usually quick to act. As these 3 points should make clear, a winning UDRP decision is not the end of the UDRP process. Instead, a trademark owner will need to be patient for the waiting period to expire, hopefully without incident, work with the current registrar on the transfer, and possibly escalate the issue if there are any delays. That's why I don't consider a UDRP proceeding complete just because I've received a winning decision from my client. The real victory comes only once the domain name has actually been transferred. If you want to learn more about the UDRP, please check out my masterclass on domain name disputes, as well as other resources on my GigaLaw website. And be sure to subscribe to the GigaLaw YouTube channel to be notified of future videos discussing other internet legal issues. Thanks for watching, and see you next time online.